Good morning and welcome to Ultiworld's coverage of the 2015 Youth Club Championships. We are live from Blaine, Minnesota for the U19 girls final between Seattle and Boston. It's an exciting matchup. Seattle has never lost a game at YCC in the U19 girls division as we see the opening pull from Boston in red go out of bounds. Seattle in black will center this disc and get things underway here in the U19 girls final. I'm Charlie Eisenhood. I'll be joined in just a few minutes by Kyle Weisbrod, and we are very excited to have coverage for you today. It's brought to you by Cut Camps and USA Ultimate. The disc gets brought to the line here by Frances Gellert, and she immediately finds Claire Trop, who's been a superstar at this tournament. We'll talk more about some of these players as we move along. Mia McGinn bounces it back over to Gillett. Seattle moving nicely in flow to start the game, and a shot to the corner is caught for the Seattle score. It's an assist for Ali Constantino, and Seattle's on the board with a hold to open things here in the U19 final. Seattle has been largely unchallenged this weekend, although they did just have a pretty good game against Cincinnati in the semifinal. It was close throughout most of the first half. At one point it was 7-6, but then the depth of Seattle, which is something that we will talk about over the course of this game, really started to shine through late, and they pulled away with a bunch of consecutive breaks and closed out a comfortable win in the second half. This Boston team, on the other hand, had a more challenging road. They mostly had an easy time of it in pool play, but they just had a spectacular game against the Triangle area team that went down to double game point. It was basically the last game at the entire complex to finish during that round. A long point on as hard cap went off during the point. And I was just talking to the coaches of Boston, including Rob Brazil, and he mentioned that he thinks they're playing incredibly well, but that they're very tired. And coming off of that game, he said it's always hard to keep the energy up. We'll see what they can do. These early points may be critical to not only staying in the game, but of course building some self-belief that, hey, we can beat this Seattle team, this juggernaut of a team that has won the YCCs every year since it began in 2005. Boston's offense on the field. Josephine Coppinger gets it up the sideline to Valerie Willick. Willick, one of the captains of this team, she gets it back to Coppinger. Loose zone from Seattle and a shot to the end zone. A nice look there for Casey Banta-Ryan, but Banta-Ryan unable to catch up. The throw a little bit too hot up that sideline. So a turnover for Boston, and Seattle will take over on the goal line. And a first throw turnover for Seattle. So Boston gets it back with good field position. It's picked up by Olivia Letterman. Now bounced around to Banta-Ryan. Nice work on the open side. Backhand force here from Seattle. And a short backhand to the end zone. And Willick gets the assist. She hits Banta-Ryan up the line, and Boston's on the board. So, despite the turnover, a nice start for Boston. 1-1 game here. Beautiful day in Blaine, Minnesota. The least wind we've had of any of the days. At the moment, we've seen no rain as well. It's humid and probably around 75 degrees. And so a very pleasant temperature and really no wind to speak of. Yesterday at this time, there was pretty significant upwind, downwind games. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects the game. Seattle has done well with their zone, and we saw it a little bit on that point, but we may find that they're not able to use it as effectively in this still weather. So Boston's defense getting set to pull here. Note that there are instructional observers on this game, and we'll talk about those between the next points. So Seattle back to work here. Hallie Dunham, one of the superstars for the Seattle team, puts it up the sideline and into the end zone. She finds Trop, and Seattle gets the quick score and the easy hold. Trop and Dunham, who just connected on that score, have been probably the best two players for this Seattle team. Notably absent for Seattle is a player who would be eligible to play, Jacqueline Verjou. She's on the All-Star Ultimate Tour right now. She is of the age group that could play on this team, but she's playing for Seattle Riot and on the All-Star Tour, so she's not here. But you know, despite that, Seattle has so much talent, so much depth, that they certainly are the favorites to win this game, as they have been every year at YCC. Hallie Dunham's off to Stanford University next year, where she'll be one of the star recruits of the year. I mean, people haven't talked about Dunham as much because of the brilliance of Verjou, but the fact remains that she's still a five-star recruit, and Stanford, I'm sure, will be happy to have her join the program. Verjou off to Dartmouth next year, so opposite coasts for the high school teammates. The Seattle team is coached by Alyssa Weatherford and Shannon O'Malley, both players for Seattle Riot, as we see the big pull from McGinn. McGinn is headed to Dickinson College next year. Boston takes over, just a little bit ahead of midfield. Nice throw through the middle there from Coppinger. Now it's with Nicole Wilkinson. Back to Coppinger, she shoots it deep. She's let Molly Adams down there, and Adams can't make the play. Nice pressure defense down on the other end from McGinn. And I'm not sure she got a piece of it, but she put enough pressure on Adams that she couldn't complete the play. So McGinn now bring it to the line. We'll see if Seattle can get their first break on the board here. And now we have an injury on the field as a Boston player goes down. And I'm sorry, on the block at the other end, it was Samia Ismail. Number 71. Number 11 is McGinn. So now player down in midfield for Boston, that's Olivia Letterman. And so off to get the trainers. I'm not quite clear what her injury is, but looks like maybe an arm or shoulder. And they're holding her still at midfield and trying not to let her move at all. So a bit of a somber moment here. This Boston team doesn't have a huge roster. Just 17 players. And the coaching staff told me before the game that they don't heavily rely on any one player, that they really use the full 17, and that's the thing that you get, and that's why these teams, Boston and Seattle, are in this game, is that they have the ability to run out players, not just 1 through 7, but all the way down through 14, 15 on the roster. And that helps them to win over the course of games. Of course, they also have some spectacular players at the top end. So the trainer has been summoned, but still taking a look here. They appear to be taking a look at Letterman's left arm. So really, one of the longer injury stoppages we've seen at the tournament so far. Really hate to see this, but hopefully maybe something just minor like a dislocation. Maybe not able to continue to play today, but of course you don't want to see any kind of major injury. As we're in this delay, we're now joined by my co-host, Kyle Weisbrod. Kyle, welcome.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I'm in dual roles here this term. I'm also serving as the assistant general manager for all the Dish Northwest teams here, so I was having to make a food run for the coaches of the girls team here.
Very important.
Very important.
So you haven't missed a whole lot here. Seattle had a break chance, but and still has the disc, but we are in the middle of now it's been an over 5-minute injury delay here.
That looks like a shoulder injury? Is that
yeah,
what we
I believe so. I'm wondering if it's a dislocation. They're taking a look at her left upper arm, and she does seem to be in pain as the trainer is running through a gamut of tests, but it looks like she's going to be able to get to her feet at least.
You know, given our kind of short timelines for these games, a lot of games we've seen have been capped. I wonder if, being a finals, if they'll extend the length of the cap here for this longer delay.
Yeah, we'll have to check in with the instructional observers at halftime and see if they're going to do something akin to soccer with an injury time. The cap rules are very simple at this tournament. These games are to 13. Hard capped at 15, and at 90 minutes the hard cap goes on, and there is no soft cap. So if somebody's not to 13 and 90 minutes hits, if the game is tied, you play one more. If it's not, the game is over. So looks like we're about to get back underway here. It's Seattle with the disc, looking for a break, and we're checked back into play. And a throw misses the target, but gets through and into the hands of Huang Tran. But her throw up ahead is too far for Maya Powell. So Boston will take back over, looking to hold here on offense.
Seattle a little showing some confusion on defense. I think a couple of their players going to his zone before switching back into that person-to-person defense.
Kendra Griezmann ahead to Claire Blazewicks. Blazewicks looking and now shooting a forehand up the line, but that's a turnover. Nice pressure downfield from Seattle as they force the second turnover of this point from the Boston offense. Ruby Cassidy with the disc on the line. And that's dished off to Ismail. Nice grab from Tran. Reaches up with both hands, dished back to Ismail. Good defensive pressure from both teams. Ismail forced to take a shot deep. Nobody recognized where that disc is, but nice job downfield. Maya Powell using her big frame to go up and pull it down with both hands. Now she's got a shot to the end zone, and Seattle's got their first break of the game. Nariah Bell Sims with the score for Seattle, and it's 3-1.
Yeah, defensive battle on that point. Both teams struggling with some high stall counts, but Seattle comes out on top there as Ismail throws up that high stall count backhand. Nice backhand out to space, and that's as much as you can ask for in those high stall count bailout throws. Just put it out in front of your receiver, make it flat, and put it somewhere where they can pull it down. And Powell, the first to be able to get a good read on that, and yeah, does a great job of sealing out the defender, able to come down, and Seattle Soares punches it in for the 3-1 lead.
And I talked a little bit at the beginning of this game about the excellence of Seattle over the course of this tournament, and you helped to set up the Youth Club Championships back when you were working at USA Ultimate. Since you've been watching this over the course of its now 11 years, have you seen the gap close a little bit between the Seattle team and the rest of the field?
There have always been challengers that come up every couple of years that are able to play Seattle tight. Last year, in fact, the main team able to play a 1-point game with Seattle, a double game point game. That was the closest game historically for Seattle. But Seattle maintains a really wide edge, especially in girls ultimate, when it comes down to the youth division. They've got girls they're playing at a much younger level. And another big place where they have a big advantage is that many of these girls have played together for a long time on the area's club team, Seattle Fries.
Shot down the field for Boston is connection. Renata Pepe pulls it down. Now she's got a shot to the end zone, and a nice grab from Molly Adams in the end zone, and she inbounds. That is the question. So the players have to make the calls here. I mentioned before the instructional observers. I believe it is going to be a turnover, so she was unable to keep her feet in bounds. So nice spirit there from Molly Adams. The observers are not there to make any kind of rulings. They're not ruling in and out. They are not ruling on up and down. They are not giving opinions on foul calls. They are only there to provide rules knowledge and keep time. So manage the time between points, manage the length of timeouts. And they also mark offsides, but do not actually call offsides. So the players are still making all of the calls in this game. Big layout from Boston, but Seattle able to keep with it. A nice layout there from Constantino. She goes up the line. Power position for Seattle. Gellert ahead. Now with Gillett. Short blade to the end zone on this near sideline. And Tropp's got it. So Tropp adds a goal to her glittering resume from this tournament. And Seattle goes up by 3.
Yeah, Claire Tropp, a rising junior at Lakeside High School, champions of high school westerns this year, also known for Hallie Dunham playing for this Seattle Soares team, as well as Jacqueline Verjou, who is not here. She is on the All-Star Women's Tour currently. As well as Kate Dougherty, who's playing on the Seattle mixed team this weekend. Lots of talent at that school, and she has been just a dominant receiver, scoring 9 goals in their pool play win over Cincinnati Bell yesterday. And, on that point, Seattle really showing what sets Seattle apart, which is just depth of both skills and athleticism, willing to throw it to anybody, and 2 big plays made, one catch under pressure and another fantastic layout grab by Constantino, and then just smoothly working it down the open side, and then that throw from Gillette to Tropp for the goal. Just really balanced offense, a really deep roster with skills all across the board.
Multi-World's coverage today is brought to you by Cut Camp. Cut Camp had 218 campers from over 30 states and 3 countries this past summer. They have the best summer camp coaching staff in the nation with names like Opie Payne, Jonathan Goose Helton, Claire Chastain, Elliot Erickson, and Cassie Swafford. So Seattle out in front by 2 breaks. We'll see if Boston's offense can get back on the right track here. Talked a bit at the beginning of the game about how the Boston coaching staff was a little worried about their players being tired after that very tough semifinal match and just a huge high energy game, and of course thrilling to win that game and then have to turn around and come and play against the best team in the country is always a challenge.
And I think that's a huge issue year to year, is that maybe there are teams out there with the talent and skill to beat Seattle maybe in a one-off game. But when you have to churn through a whole tournament and then beat Seattle and their depth, and oftentimes we see these double game point games leading to the finals, a against Seattle, where Seattle has a wider margin of victory in their semifinal matchup. And that gives Seattle a big added advantage in these games.
Ishmael hits Dunham up line. Dunham reaches back and puts up a backhand, and it's on the line. Beautiful shot, and into the end zone for another Seattle break.
There's Claire Trop again on the receiving end for that nice Hallie Dunham backhand. Hallie Dunham and Trop teammates at Lakeside High School, and Dunham heading off to Stanford University, runners up this year in the college division for college next fall.
So a very nice start here for Seattle. And Boston just having trouble stringing together passes right now. But also notable, they've had 2 times where they've had a wide open Molly Adams, and she has once just missed the catch, and then another time just landed out of bounds, and those both resulted in Seattle scores. And so that is the margin. I mean, if those go Boston's way, this game is very close.
And that's exactly the challenge here, is that those small differences are huge when you're in 11 years of this tournament.
Well, I mean, the execution is critical, and a lot of these U19 girls games, there are a lot of turnovers, but as we've seen at the beginning of this game, Seattle doesn't give it back that often, and that really can make for some wide score discrepancies, even if the talent discrepancy isn't that big. So Boston looking to right the ship here, but it's not going to happen as they turn it over on the centering pass. So Seattle picks up with a short field and a chance to take a 5-point lead. To the sideline, nice grab on this near side from Trong. Trong, blade to the end zone, and Boston's going to get it back. So they'll get a redo, and that's a gift from Seattle. Coppinger brings it to the line. Big wide cup from Seattle right now in this zone look. Boston moving it laterally, but hasn't had a chance to move it through the cup yet. Oh, nice grab on the low throw there. Banta Ryan collects it and finds Griezmann. Back to Banta Ryan, she centers it. Big wide cup is crashed by Go. Go with a short push pass, and now they get it off the sideline back to the center. Nice job on the zone defense, and now they find a hole on the far side and get it ahead to Maggie Barron. Barron up ahead, not quite into the end zone. Back in the hands of Coppinger, and she throws a short flick and a turnover. So Boston does everything right until the very end. And it's Ishmael who comes up with the block, and she'll pick it up, bring it to the line, and Seattle's got another chance on just a missed execution at the last.
Now, I'm not sure if Ishmael got a piece of that one, and here she puts up a big huck, but I think Hartle just dropped that one with the pressure from Ishmael, and Seattle just responds so quickly, goes from their own goal line to knocking on the door again for another break, just like that.
Dunham gets it to Sophie Johansson. Now off the line, Seattle working in the red zone, but that throw not quite there. Johansson was open.
Just a little too far out in front here, and Leanne Go picking up. Leanne Go, sister of Caitlin Go from Stanford University, one of the key members of their title run, or their runners-up run this year at the college championships.
Lots of famous siblings on these teams. Here's Griezmann. Buda looking to continue to work through this zone. Their zone offense looks good.
Now Boston finding success when they feel comfortable distributing to everybody and taking the easy passes. I think they struggle a little when they get to a player who doesn't feel comfortable hitting that next open look, and they put themselves in pressure situations like that one.
Banta Ryan tries the hammer for the swing, but puts a little too much on it. And Pepe cannot catch up, so back to Seattle near midfield. Quick throw and go there from Dunham. She gets it back now up the line. Dumps it back to Johansson. Right back to Dunham. And the strike cuts have been there all game so far for Seattle. They're getting easy resets in upline power positions. And now we see Seattle going to take a timeout. Johansson wants to talk it over after holding in the red zone for a few. And I think really one of the stories of this half so far, Boston has had 3 chances in the end zone. They've had 2 drops and an out of bounds play. And 2 of those have turned into Seattle breaks, and this could become the 3rd.
Yeah, and not just clean up those offensive miscues. They need to apply more defensive pressure. You mentioned those up line cuts from Seattle. You saw Hallie Dunham was often standing unguarded by 3 or 4 yards, and she's going to be the best thrower in this division right now. You gotta guard Dunham. You can't let her just get those easy resets and then pick apart the offense with her expert throws.
So big moment here for Boston defensively. Can they come up with another goal line stand?
So Sophie Johansson with the disc right on the goal line here for the Seattle squad. A 5-1, and yeah, you know, it's not, like you said, it's not a huge difference in skill level, but it leads to a huge difference in score on the board right now.
Yeah, just those little mistakes add up. And I think it's also partly it's a mental thing. You know, Boston, of course, I'm sure thrilled just to make it to this final after having such a tough semi, and that can sometimes cause you to relax a little bit mentally when you need to be focused on the task at hand. So here's their chance to get a goal line stand, try to get a score on the board here. Johansson, and it's knocked away on a layout D by Boston. So they get exactly what they needed, and now they got to try to turn it into offense. That was Banta Ryan with the layout block. Great play on just the undercut right to the cone. Good body positioning and an excellent layout, well timed.
Yeah, and it wasn't just her play. They shut down the first cut too, which gave the opportunity, but here's another turnover. Stepped out too far and slipped, which impacted the throw. She had a receiver open underneath and threw to the far receiver, who was easily covered.
Coppinger.
Seattle in this trap zone defense, adding a little bit of extra pressure here. But Buddha handling nicely on this possession.
Mia Hartle goes to the sideline. Now recentered back to Coppinger. She does the right thing there. Doesn't want to take immediately the swing back to this trap sideline, but now you see that Seattle's dropped off into man. Swing pass. Oh, nearly taken away.
Costantino with a great effort, and then a turnover on an open throw. Another unforced error here from Buddha.
So Barron makes a nice play to get that disc before the Seattle player able to knock it away, but then turns it over on the swing. So back to Seattle. Long point here. This is becoming increasingly important, especially with the long injury stoppage. Burning some clock.
Ishmael with another kind of wild throw here, hangs up in the air, but great positioning here.
Oh, but it's
Sophie
dropped.
Johansson, but can't come down with it.
Yeah, so, but we may have a foul call here. Was the call in the end zone or on the throw?
It looks like Sophie Johansson is calling it on the reception. And it looks like it's an uncontested foul, so it's going to stay at the goal line. Johansson, who was in the end zone, will walk it back to the goal line here once it gets tapped in by Coppinger.
So Johansson gets it. I'm not convinced that that was a foul personally, but uncontested. So Johansson gets it. Boston sets up a backhand force, but I think there may have been a miscommunication on what the force was there, because there was an easy open side cut for the score.
Yeah, and Dunham just easily makes quick work of that one once they get on the goal line. Not only doing it with her throws, but also with her feet. She's great in short distance spaces. Tough to shut down. And I know that's something that she's been working on a lot with Underground this year. She's been handling a bunch with my former player from last year, Emma Kale, from University of Washington, and both of them really like that quick style movement, short passes, and just kind of dinking around the field and doing it with their feet as well as with their throws.
So now a 6-1 Boston lead. Seattle 1 point away from a halftime big lead. And really, it's just been some execution errors that have really cost Boston in this game. They've made some nice plays. They've had some big throws, some big catches, layout Ds. But it's been the little things, drops, unforced errors. And that has allowed Seattle to have lots of chances. I think there was a 4th or 5th look for Seattle's defensive line at the end zone on that point. We talked a little bit about some of the sibling connections on this team. This Boston team, Zoe Hecht is the sister of Mac Hecht, who's one of the captains of the U19 Boston Open team that we'll see a little later today, taking on the defending champions Triangle Triforce. Tess Johnson is the sister of Tanner Johnson, also player for the U19 Buddha team, a fantastic player, one of the best at this tournament. Molly Adams, the sister of Sarah Adams, who plays for Whitman, and they both have elite ultimate parents. And Leanne Go, as you already mentioned, the sister of Caitlin, who plays for Stanford. So swing out to the sideline for Pepe. Nice movement here. Coppinger up ahead. Nicely handled on the low throw from Hecht. And Hecht looking to the end zone. And this time Boston works it down quickly. Nice play. Vanta Ryan with the score. And Boston's offense gets another one. It's 6-2.
Well, interesting there. The Seattle had found a lot of success with their zone defense, and they went to a forced forehand matchup defense there. And Boston works it smoothly, easily able to get open on those open-sided unders and aways. Seattle showing no signs of putting their body in that spot where their player can't get to it. So it'll be interesting to see if Seattle tries to work that person-to-person more as we move forward in this game, or if they go back to the zone that had been effective. So that's a big one. Getting that second point on the board here for Boston, and doing it in an efficient way, both for time-wise and for confidence too. Getting some points where they can make the Seattle defense look non-existent has got to do wonders to make you feel like every time we get the disc, we can do that. We are capable of working this disc down the field.
Absolutely, and I mean, I think you've seen they're able to work it against the zone as well, but it hasn't been that they've gotten stifled. A couple times they've had turnovers because of high stalls against the cup, but a lot of times what we've seen is just a throwaway on a swing pass or a drop. And so if they can clean it up, then they're going to have a very good chance to, I think make this a game. The key is, what can they do on defense? This is just their second defensive point after Seattle held on the game's opening point.
Great pull here from Buddha.
But you can see a little slow to get down the field, perhaps a bit tired, and on an open Huck looking down the field, and it's caught. Great play from Trop, and she's in the end zone. Gets it in to Constantino, and so Seattle with the very quick score yet again. As Seattle takes half, 7-2.
Yeah, Claire Trope, just a fantastic receiver for the squad. Super fast, very athletic, and they just set that one up from Gillette straight to Trope, and that was hard to contest. She has displayed consistently over the weekend some of the top speed in the division here as Seattle takes half, 7-2.
Yeah, you can see she had 3 defenders on her, but all trailing. So Trope makes the play. Seattle takes half 7-2. We'll be back for the start of the second half, see if Boston can make a little run, get back into this thing. Stay with us here. Multiworld's live coverage of the 2015 Youth Club Championships brought to you by Cut Camps and USA Ultimate. Welcome back to Blaine, Minnesota. It's the U19 girls final here at the Youth Club Championship. Seattle has a 7-2 lead on Boston. Seattle looking for their 11th straight consecutive YCC championship. Boston struggled a bit in the first half to execute cleanly. They had a couple of end zone drops, out of bounds, some turnovers on swing passes, and Seattle just executing much more cleanly and scoring their offensive points quickly. And that has opened up a 5-point lead for the Seattle girls. So second half underway, Boston receiving, see if their offense can get back on track. And we do see Seattle coming back down in a bit of a zone look here. This was effective earlier. Just here on the sideline with Willick. And her hammer turns over as Hartle unable to get a hand on it. So another turnover near midfield. Seattle with a chance to work the short field. Shot to the back of the end zone is caught, and is she in bounds? No. So Boston will take back over.
It's a great throw from Constantino, but I don't think she was aware of how close she was to the end zone when she took it. Hits Naraya Bell Sims, but just too far out of bounds. One thing I thought was interesting on that last Buddha possession here in this trap zone, the offside wing in the trap zone, Tran, came all the way in with a Buddha cutter into the cup, putting a lot of pressure on and forcing a high that hammer over the top. And here's another turnover right on the goal line from Buddha.
So
the zone proving to be very effective for Seattle.
Absolutely, and Seattle now with the shortest of possible fields. Ishmael to pick it up for Seattle Saurus, as they are called. She goes the inside flick, and she gets the score.
Seattle just isolates Johansson there for Ishmael, and Johansson makes a couple moves, dances around a little bit, and then when she's clear, Ishmael finds the space and hits her with that little IO flick. And so Seattle strikes first out of half with another break to go up 8-2.
Yeah, I posited early in this game that the Seattle zone may not be that effective because of the lack of wind today. It really is. There's almost not even a breeze right now. But I was mistaken. This Seattle zone has proven very effective, and I think you see that Boston just doesn't have maybe the caliber of throwers with hammers and such to beat this over the top. They've done a nice job swinging at times, but you can see that Seattle's made a couple of adjustments to that zone, as you just pointed out, and that has been, at least on that point, very effective.
You mentioned the mental game earlier here, and Buddha, having to survive a really tight and probably physically and mentally exhausting semifinal to get here. On the other side, this team, as I mentioned, is made up of a lot of players that play for the Fry's club team, and that team has a lot of big game experience. This is a club team that competes on the college level against top college teams. They beat my program, University of Washington, this year at Northwest Challenge. They beat Stanford University at Northwest Challenge. We're talking about teams that are at the top of the college women's division, and these players have played in those games. So this game is not the highest pressure, most visible thing. They've been on live streams, or at least videotaped games before. Obviously, all of the Hallie's Dad videos. So they felt this pressure. They know what it feels like to be on camera.
Boston back to work on offense. Again, we see zone from Seattle. This time they break through it a little bit more quickly. I think an attacking mindset helping get past a bit of the zone before they were able to set up. Now Seattle staying with the zone even this deep in the field. Disc swings across to Pepe. Dish back to Lerner. Lerner thinking Scuber. Instead takes the short backhand to go. Lerner to the sideline for Banta Ryan. She finds a hole in the cup. And now a shot to the end zone. Perfect throw from Willick for the Boston score.
And again, we see Boston displaying that they have skill and talent and can compete on this field. It's just a matter of playing the game they want to play, being aggressive, taking the shots they have, and really moving the disc. I think we see them get in trouble when they get static. Just Northwest is able to kind of pounce on some throws when they have to force high stall count over the top throws. But when they're aggressive and they're moving the disc and not letting that Seattle zone set, they work through great. They moved it really well. There are a couple of close ones where they had to put in between defenders, but I think that goes along with their aggressiveness. If they can play that way, can play with confidence, they're in a lot better shape.
So Boston with another shot defensively here. The last Seattle offensive points have been very quick, 15, 20 seconds max. So we'll see if they try to do something different or just avoid giving up that big gainer. Some early hucks to Trope have hurt them.
Yeah, frequently the Seattle offense is looking for either Dunham or Gillette, putting it deep very early, oftentimes to Trope or Constantino. Both Gillette and Dunham on the field for this point, as well as Constantina and Trope.
Pull, lands inbounds, about 15 yards in front of the attacking end zone for Boston. Seattle on the sideline gets a nice undercut. Just moving quickly, and now a huck, but this one not a great line, and it's knocked down and tipped away. So Boston gets a turnover, and now let's see what they can do with it.
Great movement there from the Seattle offense, but the throw just hangs up a little too long, and Boot able to knock that one down. And now, forcing Seattle into this person-to-person defense, but lots of switching and poaching here. You see McGinn out in the lane, causing trouble, and Dunham hanging out deep. Very nice defensive awareness from that team to transition into a very smart kind of clammish style defense. And now Dunham going deep to Trope.
It looks like it's got a little too much on it. Trope makes the catch, but I'm fairly sure she's out the back. I asked the spectators for an opinion.
Looks like the spectators on out there saying that it was in. That's the Buddha boys team, and they have their hands up,
signaling a goal. Yeah, so neither player down there had a look at their feet. They were both looking at the disc, of course. It is going to ultimately be called a turnover.
Really interesting there. I mean, they were really focused on keeping on the field. But I think there were a lot of that sideline in really good position to see what was going on. Interesting, we only have one observer on, and they're not making active line calls anyway. And on the field next to us in the third place game on the boys' side, there's 2 observers. It seems like maybe the observer resources should be split a little more evenly here. At least they could be there.
Short Scuber. Now bounce back to the outside for Coppinger. Now all the way to the sideline for Banta Ryan. She swings it back. Coppinger has been the field marshal for this Boston team for most of the game. Nice short hammer there to the break side space for Banta Ryan. Big flattish backhand marks from Seattle, and a throw down the field is easily intercepted by Dunham. Nice catch from McGinn. Dunham, low backhand to the sideline, finds Trope. Trope steps around, finds Gillette. McGinn pivoting nicely, and now finds strike-cutting Gellert, who goes to the end zone, hits Rose Sofer-Cosens, and Seattle extends the lead back to 6.
So Boston really making Seattle work on that 0 point for Seattle, but Seattle, after a couple turns, able to pull that one in. One thing that I just want to note on that last point strategically, you mentioned the flat marks from Seattle, and I think that's a really interesting slight switch that they made here, and that is often really effective, especially in these kind of developing levels of the game, because they've changed the angles that cuts need to be made at downfield. If your downfield cutters don't recognize that those cuts are going to wider sides, then the cutters are oftentimes putting themselves in that narrow lane that is blocked by the mark, and making those throws really hard. And that's actually where we saw that turnover there. The thrower threw it out too wide for the Boston receiver, and the Boston receiver responsible there for actually making the cut to the spot where the thrower can hit. There's lots of space out there, but it's a different space than you would think with a more directional force.
So Seattle in control here. A reminder, games to 13 today, not the typical championship 15. That's a product of having so many teams for one, and also staggering the 3 finals in the U19 division, all to be live streamed right here on UltiWorld. So I hope you stay with us. We've got the U19 mixed final coming up next, 12:30 Central Time, and then 2 hours after that at 2:30 Central, we've got the U19 boys final. Mixed division will feature Washington, D.C. versus San Francisco. Boys final, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill will take on Boston.
And again, Seattle comes down fast in this zone, and Boston very aggressive again. The first passes through, had lots of looks through, but unwilling to take the next one. And now Seattle's gotten themselves set around midfield.
Pretty throw there, and that opens up room, and a great snag down the field from Adams. Now Boston into the red zone. Willock swings now to the corner, and again we see great pressure from Ishmael. She did not touch that disc, but she made the receiver think twice, and another drop. Well, and Ishmael has been there every time, it feels like.
Yeah, she's putting great pressure on those throws to the end zone as the deep in the Seattle zone. But that one's on Blazewicz. She went with the wrong hand there, trying to grab it with the right trailing edge, where she could have probably clap caught it or caught it with her left hand out in front, where the disc is spinning into her hand.
Ishmael shoots deep right away, but it'll be intercepted easily down the field by Go. Boston working up that flick sideline, taking a shallow shot towards the end zone, but it's Ishmael again there, and she takes it away. On a dump miscommunication there as Ishmael is going the other direction. And Boston gets a short field to work with here. Boston offensive point.
Wide open Adams.
And she's got it. Nice throw there from Willock. And Boston puts another one on the board. They've started to settle in a little bit. That aggressive work against the zone early in the possession, proving to be effective, gets them some yards before they get trapped on the sideline.
And on that last transition, on the turnover from Seattle, quickly moving the disc, not letting Seattle get set. You know, Seattle's kind of set in this mindset right now of, oh, we're going to set our zone offense or zone defense, and Boston taking advantage of that and working it through, and that's what gets Adams free there. There's no defense back there anywhere near her, and Willock finding her with a very nice backhand. But I think it's a similar thing, right? That mindset of being aggressive off the pull, being aggressive off transitions. It's a mental game changer here for Budo.
And of course, Boston's still looking for answers defensively. You wonder if they're going to try something a little bit different here, maybe a zone. If nothing else, a zone might help them to rest their legs a little bit. They've been running out their top players on a lot of points. Though it does look like they're reaching into their bench a little bit here, giving those offensive players a rest. Players like Coppinger on the sideline on this point. Here's the big pull from Marissa Lerner. Lands near the brick mark for Seattle. And it's another quick shot down the field, and it's just easy buckets right there. Once again, it's Trope just running past her defender, and Seattle scores in 2 throws.
With Trope, it's a pick your poison kind of battle here. She's going to beat you one way or the other with her speed. And we saw that in the last point. They backed her a bunch, and Trope was able to gain 30 yards under. But you front her, you try to play even with her, and she's going to take you deep. And Seattle has the throwers to hit that throw, obviously. Gillette, perfectly comfortable throwing up a backhand where Trope is even with a receiver, with a defender, and letting Trope just run it out. You know, I think if I were facing them, I think a zone would probably make a lot of sense. Possibly forcing Trope under is the other alternative, and just allowing those 20, 25-yard under throws, because that's a lot better than being beaten deep for goals.
In one throw, yeah.
You know, I think it's not just about getting blocks. You got to give yourself chances to get blocks. And if Seattle's scoring in 2 or 3 passes, you're not even getting no one's getting a look at a chance. No one's getting a look at putting pressure on. And you got to give yourselves more throws that Seattle has to make, so you have more opportunities to get blocks.
So Boston still breakless in the game. They've had a couple of chances, but as you could see on that last point, there have been also a lot of very easy offensive points for Seattle. Ishmael with the pull. for Seattle Saurus. Quick give and go move from Boston, and they work it up just past the brick mark.
Seattle back in a person-to-person defense here with those flat marks. Boston went working out a vertical stack, but showing some confusion downfield about where the space is. And there's some switching going on from District Northwest, which may be causing that confusion.
Hecht with it here, back to Coppinger.
Now we've got a backhand force from Seattle.
Here's Hartle. Boston working and working it right into the end zone. So again, they've been working pretty effectively against the person defense from Seattle. Score for Banta Ryan.
Well, that's 3 consecutive offensive holes here for Boston, showing that they can play here. It's just maybe a little too late in this game to do that. You know, they figured out their offense. They're still struggling to put that defensive pressure on the Seattle squad.
Right now, 11:30 here in Minneapolis, Blaine to be specific. And so we're 30 minutes from the hard cap. Still, there is plenty of time. Points have been scored fairly quickly. Aside from the early injury stoppage, we haven't had a lot of downtime. But obviously Boston would need to come up with a big shift in their defensive pressure. And maybe it can start right here.
I mean, it's got to start by containing Trope. You can't just let her break free consistently for 5-yard, easy, wide open goals on every offensive point. If you want to create a break, you got to hold them and contain them. Even if those are turnovers, you're still forcing yourself to work 70 yards against Seattle's top line out here. And there you see Trope taking off again. And they've got 2 defenders back there for Buda. Leanne Go and Adams both stopping and holding back. And they're backing Trope by a large margin here.
And she comes underneath for that 25-yard gainer that we talked about. And then she steps into a flick. It's going to be contested, but it's going to be brought down. Great catch from Constantino. And Boston with a quick hole. I mean, you could see they adjusted. They put a last back there and said, go do something else. But what did she do? She came under and threw the assist.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. You've got, she's certainly a skilled thrower. Her throw's been developing considerably over the last 12 months. She's going to be one of the leaders on Lakeside High School next year, along with Kate Dougherty with Dunham and Verzu graduating. But, you know, it's hard to stop both Trope, and then you've got a second Constantino who is almost as skilled as Trope at getting free, has a ton of top-end speed as well, and as she showed right there, can go up really strong.
Amazing to watch a 16-year-old just be so dominant here against high school seniors. And I think more and more we're seeing that. We've seen it a bit in the U19 boys division as well. Liam Searles-Bose on the Triangle team, maybe the most effective player on that team in the semifinals and for much of this tournament. And he just he just finished up his sophomore year at Carolina Friends School down in Raleigh-Durham. So the question is, has the recruiting for college for Claire Trope already started?
You know, I've learned long ago that there's not much you can do to recruit a kid to come to college. They're going to make their decisions at this point. I think on a lot of things. I mean, certainly we'll take some high school kids and make sure we show them around University of Washington and show them what it's like to be a student there. It's a great school, but you know, I think a lot of teams are doing that with some of these top high school players these days. I know, you know, Pitt hosts a recruit weekend for boys in the fall, kind of giving them the taste of that experience. But I think at this point, you know, I think kids are still making their decision based on academics and the school size they want, where the price and location are, and then obviously the Ultimate's kind of an added bonus for most of these kids. They try to find a school that meets all those things and then has a strong Ultimate team.
Right. Boston working it up the flick sideline. Comes ahead to go, right near the goal line. She goes with a little high backhand into the end zone, so another hold for Boston as Banta Ryan gets the score. So yet again, we get to watch what adjustments does Boston make on the defensive side.
You know, and I'm sure Boston's sitting here thinking, I wish we play with this kind of aggressiveness and confidence in the first half of this game. We could be making this game. This could be a 2 or 3 point game instead of a 5 point game, and within striking distance. You know, certainly the defensive pressure needs to come for this for them to feel like they would have had a shot in this game. They need to be able to generate turnovers and convert a break to feel like even if they played better in the first half, they would have been able to put it away. But offensively, they've definitely cleaned it up. That's 4 consecutive O points they've been able to put in here.
Right, the execution has been much better. They found that aggressiveness after maybe a bit of a tentative start.
Yeah,
nice adjustment from the coaching staff at halftime, I think, especially dealing with that zone.
Yeah, you know, made them more aggressive, but also like calmed their nerves a little bit in terms of being able to throw those throws and make the catches too. I mean, we saw a lot of unforced turnovers in the first half, and not just because of the tentativeness. So here we see Seattle's O-line out there again, and Boston set to pull.
So this looks like more of a stacked line. Lots of height out there for Boston. It's going to be Coppinger with the pull.
And Trope again taking off early, but Boston with 2 players left back. They've got a zone defense set up here.
They dip back into man. I think they're sagging off the handlers. An unmarked huck here. Going to be contested, but it just can't get a piece of it. And it's another score for Seattle down the field. Soifer Kosins with the goal. And you've seen a lot of that, uncontested hucks. And then despite the height advantage, just the throws with enough pace that Boston not able to get there and turn it into a 50-50.
Well, yeah, that was a beautiful backhand there from Josie Gillette. And Gillette's been doing it not just to Trope, but to other receivers as well out there. She is a graduating senior out of Northwest School in Seattle. And she will be making her way to Bates College this fall. Northwest School, of course, the juggernaut high school program in Seattle, having won every single high school state girls championship until this year when Lakeside finally took the crown. Northwest School is to Seattle Ultimate as Seattle is to YCC. That's my SAT analogy right there.
Yes, that's very good.
We'll be moving on to the math section later today. So here we are, game point here for Seattle, Seattle-Saurus. Seattle actually has a tradition of changing their team name year to year, but Seattle-Saurus, I believe, is the second year this team has held on to that team name. One thing that's interesting is Seattle has a U16 team. You know, it's the newest division here, the girls U16 division. They've actually split into 2 squads at the U16 level, and they're expected to meet in the finals, kind of displaying that dominance that Seattle has in this girls division.
Boston looking to hold here to keep this game going. And a high stall situation forces a huck, but it's a good one on target. And it ends up in the hands of Griezmann. Griezmann plays at high school. Oh, as we see a great sky down in the far end zone. Nice play there from Pepe. And Boston extends this game a little longer. Griezmann goes to Arlington High School, which has no girls' ultimate team. So she plays other sports during the year. She plays soccer, and then plays with Buddha during the YCC tournament. And the question is, you know, both of her parents played. She comes from a big Ultimate family. Her brother, Trevor, graduated from Dickinson. He was a first-team all-region player. And so she's going to have to wait until college to get onto a consistent team, but an effective player out here, and I think you can see sometimes that soccer skill, field sense, can really transfer well to Ultimate. Ultiworld's coverage today brought to you in part by USA Ultimate, and they want you to take the U-Fly Challenge. And so if you go to rallyup.com/UFLY, UFly-2015, you can help support the USA Ultimate Foundation, which serves as the philanthropic arm of USA Ultimate, which raises funds for development opportunities and local grassroots programs. So if you go to the website rallyup.com/UFly-2015, you can click Pledge, help support YCC teams to win great prizes, and support the USA Ultimate Foundation. Seattle on offense looking to finish it off here. See what Boston can do. Again, sagging that lane, trying to limit those hucks, and we see a swing turnover.
And there is a pressure D from Boston. Boston putting on the defensive pressure here and now getting a relatively short field over midfield. An opportunity and looking aggressive here. Yeah, pick call is probably going to bring this one back.
So this is a great chance, maybe the best chance Boston's had all game. They got the disc in their own half. About 30 yards from the end zone. Disc is with Lerner. And it's Trope on the mark. Lerner up the line. Orem Brown looking for the reset. Over to Go. Go attacking the end zone. Layout, but not enough. Nicole Wilkinson, the intended receiver. And another chance slips through Boston's fingers.
You know, it's easy to question that chance that you have in taking that big shot here right on the red zone, knocking the door for a break. But the aggressiveness is what's been paying off for Buddha here in the second half. And taking that shot is kind of part and parcel of that aggressiveness. So I think that you can't have one without the other here for Boston.
Nice movement for Seattle. Give and go. Goes back to Dunham. She fires a hammer cross field to Gillette. Gets down, makes the catch. Gillette stepping into another big backhand. Oh, that's just beautiful work from Seattle as they close out the game. It's Trope once again just running in front of the defense, pulling down the score. So Gillette and Trope connecting again as Seattle wins their 11th straight Youth Club Championship, 13-7 here in the U19 girls division.
A display of utter dominance here from Seattle. You know, they open up that hugely in the first half. Boston battled back, putting a little more offensive pressure on, and then able to generate turns in the very end of that game. You know, I think they figured some things out, but they figured them out too little too late. Maybe it was the good old days where games were to 17 or 19 or 21. You know, Boston was on that upward trajectory, but with a game to 13, Seattle able to close that one out in the second half.
So an impressive performance from Seattle Saurus. They win another Youth Club Championship. And a fantastic game. Boston really, they did well for themselves in the second half. They were a much better team, despite not getting a break. Played much better offense, and I think they've got to be proud of making it to this final, getting that great win against Raleigh. And now I think we'll see the two teams cheer as we wrap up our coverage here of this U19 girls game. Be sure to stay tuned. Coming up next, we've got the U19 mixed final. That game starts at 12:30. That's about 45 minutes from now. It'll be Washington, D.C. taking on San Francisco. Both teams have really looked great this weekend. It should be a fantastic game. So we hope you'll join us for that again. That's 12:30 Central Time. Our coverage today brought to you by Cut Camp. Cut Camp now offers 5 different camps, including 2 in Chicago, 2 in North Carolina, and Cut Camp Elite in Chicago, a higher level camp that challenges more advanced campers. They've already released the dates for Chicago 2016, and registration opens November 1st at competitiveultimatetraining.com. Final score here in Blaine, Minnesota. Seattle 13, Boston 7 in the U19 girls final. Seattle wins their 11th title here at YCC. They have still yet to lose a game at this tournament in its existence. For Kyle Weisbrod and all of us at Ultiworld, I'm Charlie Eisenhood. See you back here in 45 minutes for the mixed game.